You said you are a teacher.
I'm a teacher. I'd rather not say exactly where, but it's in California.
Yeah. What do you teach?
I teach political science, so it's a college political science course in a 12th grade classroom for advanced students, so they can earn college credit while they're going to school. Um, I am very adamant about being neutral in my classroom, so I don't share
Good.
my own personal political views
Yeah,
and presenting both sides. So if all my kids agree with one side, I'll just present the devil's advocate, whether I agree with it personally or not.
Which is how it should be, honestly. That's exactly how it should be. You shouldn't be forcing your beliefs onto the kids, and that's become a very, very big thing lately in the schools, public schools.
Better person than me. If I was a political science teacher, I'd be like, hold on. Yeah, the losers think this way. No, I'm just kidding. But it sounds like you're a great teacher. That's good to hear.
I just think it's important for, even if you don't agree with the other side, it's important to understand the other side's perspective and be able to, as
Yeah.
a teacher, you should be able to argue both sides, in my opinion.
Yep.
But I had a student, just in reference to the Kirk thing, that I think that's what really kind of hit me was several years ago, this was many years ago before a lot of people really knew who he was. I honestly didn't even know who he was at that point. A student came to me and asked, can we start a Turning Point chapter on campus? Yeah. And I said, because I've always told my students, I will advise, because they have to have a teacher advisor, I will advise a conservative or a liberal or anything as long as it's, there's nothing negative about it. And this is like a mea culpa. I didn't know who he was, so I said, well, let me look into it. And I said, I will Google it. And the narrative, as we know online, was very negative, and I did about 20-30 minutes of research, and I got a lot of negative feedback, to be perfectly honest. And I told the student no. And he said, and I explained, I said, a lot of what I've seen is, showing that there's a lot of racist and this and that. And he's told me, he's like, but he's not.
See, here's the thing though. How can you be alive today? How can you be living in America today? And okay, like just put it in perspective. I go to work every day. I'm around people every day, all the time. I don't see any racism. I don't see any racism. I don't see any crap like that. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but the chances of you running into it are so slim. So how can someone, be like, well, hold on, let me look into it, get online, and then, maybe Reddit or wherever it was that she looked. I don't know where she looked. I can't really assume where she looked. But if a whole bunch of people online are like, oh, it's racist, oh, it's this, oh, it's that, how are you going to believe that when in reality, when you're out and about in normal day life, you see the complete opposite of that existing anywhere? I feel like the word racism has just turned into a word that has lost its meaning, and it's just used for anyone that the left doesn't like. And what's even more sad, the point that I wanted to make, is one of my best friends at work, my favorite coworker, is a very liberal person, but he's normal. You know what I mean? So it's pretty much like the mainstream media and like mainstream Democrats and the Democrat Party that seem to like push this fake narrative of racism and bigotry and craziness, and it trickles down into people where we live in this split reality of online and real life, and they spew all this crap online as if it's actually existing, but in real life it's not. And then you got some people who actually take that and merge it into their actual real life and live that way. And it's dangerous, bro. That's very dangerous because it's not actually existing the way that it's being pushed to be, you know?
Not. And I can't support that, right?
How were you researching that, if you don't mind me asking? Were you
General
looking at articles? Were you looking at
Googling.
Google?
Yeah, sorry, Googling articles, the general. And I'll be honest, I did not do a deep dive, and that's a mea culpa.
And it's even more dangerous when big companies that run our online social aspects of life push that narrative. That's when it gets really bad. When people are getting paid by certain people to push a narrative. When you start selling your soul for money and you give up all your morals for that paycheck and you are in a position of power and leading, that becomes very
should
dangerous.
have, right? Like, as being a busy teacher, you get caught up in, and I think this is what the average person does, right? They just kind of go in, kind of gloss over, get this big picture idea, and it often is not the accurate one, right? So then he just kind of said, but Miss, I'm not gonna say my last name, but he's not. And I said, okay. I said,
Miss Teacher.
Miss Teacher. I said, he's not. And I said, okay. And so he just kind of let it go. Another student came back another year later and asked me, and this one did not let go. This student said, but you got to look at this. And I said, okay, so my thing is I always say, bring me evidence, right? That's my thing. Bring me the evidence. He brought the evidence, right? He brought me tons of evidence, and we did a deep dive. And so I wish I could apologize to that first student because I was wrong. I was very wrong. You know, I looked at the quotes, and then they've taken out of context quotes, the completely missed.
Yeah, see, you got to go to the source, man. Go look at TPUSA videos. Go look at Charlie Kirk videos. Go to the actual horse's mouth and watch it for yourself. And take away any bias that you may have picked up along the line of reading online and people telling you what this person is or how they are. Let go of that biasness that has already been formed and take a clear look at the person themselves and the videos and stuff. I I don't understand how this is a hard concept, but some people just don't do that, bro. Some people literally their whole lives are based off what they hear from other people, and that is crazy to me.
Quotes. I mean, it was ridiculous what I saw.
And it sounds like you're incredibly good faith in that. You know, I think there's a lot of bad faith people that don't even try to do it.
Yeah.
But it also makes it incredibly difficult when, you know, you have your search engines are against you as well.
Yeah.
They're feeding
Yeah.
all the top results are things to shape a particular narrative.
That's what I was
about
just
somebody,
saying, dude.
Either
Yeah.
an ideology or a specific person. And so, you know, you're using the tools that you have available.
Yep.
And those are
Absolutely.
misdirecting you as well.
It's
Yeah.
dangerous.
And I think very well-intentioned people
A lot.
go in there, and that's the narrative they get, and they're like,
Yeah.
well, how can you tell me anything different? This is what I'm seeing. This is my reality. And so we end up with two realities in this world, right?
It's also what I said, bro. Like you can't just be like, "Oh, they told me that, so, it's that." Like no, like what does your lived experience tell you? And be honest about that. Don't lie about it because you need to defend your stance. And if you see, a lot of people don't want to be wrong as well. They feel stupid if they're wrong. But you're not stupid if you're wrong. Being wrong doesn't make you stupid. Being wrong isn't something you should be ashamed of. That's how you learn. So don't stand up for something in fear of being wrong about what you were told or what you believe. Like you need to move forward with your life and with you yourself as a person and be honest with yourself.
And so I have this one, because we do media as part of the unit, and I have this one screenshot of the 2016 election. I just did a Google image search. Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton. Every single Donald Trump picture was like this mean looking,
Of
like
course.
kind of evil. And then Hillary Clinton was always smiling. And so I actually told my students to stop using Google at that point.
By the
And so-
millions, those tiny little things have a
Psychological.
massive,
Yep.
massive psychological
Yeah.
impact.
And so I just, once he brought the evidence and we deep dived and we looked at it and we said, and I was wrong. I was like, he's not racist. He's not homophobic. He has a heart for God. And I am a Christian. I said, he has a heart for God. And so we were about to start a Turning Point chapter and COVID hit. So we never ended up getting that going. But
That student won that debate, huh?
he won it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've had students change my mind. That's not the first time. It certainly wasn't the last time. So I've had students change my mind. I've always, my response is bring me the evidence. And when they bring it, I'm willing to look at it. But, the first one, I wish I could apologize. He's probably long off, probably married, having kids now. But like, I feel still terrible about that. And he was actually the one that introduced me to who Charlie Kirk was, those two students. So
And then here you are years later
Yeah.
at Turning Point HQ
Yeah.
to pay your respects.
Yeah. And just to look at it as regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, this is not okay. This is not okay. And, we talk about it in the class, and the vast majority of my students agree with that. They agree that it's not okay. But at the same time, some of them are saying, I don't know what to do with the fact that I secretly feel almost happy when the Butler thing happened. And, and I said, well, we need to look into that. Where's that coming from? And why are we giving into that? So.
It's a
As a
brainwash.
political science teacher, tell me your perspective on this when it comes to the two very different reactions following the brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk. I know you're worried about your kids, and you should be, right, as a good teacher, but just in a general sense, your thoughts on those reactions as a country.
Yeah.
Can I get your take on that?
Yeah, I can say as far as in the classroom from the student's perspective, I'm on leave right now because I have actually made the decision to homeschool my daughter for the year. But I am still very involved with other teachers. And so I can give you some of the teacher reactions.
Yeah,
and
sure,
I have
yeah.
to say it has been very disheartening. Very disheartening to see a lot of we have these like little private teacher groups where most of the time we're talking about curriculum and lesson planning, but this last week there's been a lot of very negative response and teachers that are posting saying, I don't want to say what I really think because I'm afraid I'm going to get fired. So
That's the sad part, bro. I've noticed it's a lot of older people too. Like there are some young people, obviously, but like the main people that I run into that are just absolutely just washed in the brain from, you know, TDS and all this crazy stuff, bro, are like older people. And I think it's just mainly the people that grew up on news channels and probably still have news channels playing in their home all the time. And that's where they go for news. And once you've grown up on that, bro, like they're just very stuck in their ways, you know? And it doesn't matter, man. Like even if Joe Biden, if something would have happened to him like this during his presidency, I still would have been sad because that is sad. How you celebrate that happening to anybody is beyond me, bro. Like you really need to take a look at your own heart and reach out to God and ask him to soften it because if you're celebrating something like this or feel good about it, you should be reevaluating yourself and the content and things that you are consuming in life.
there's a lot of people getting fired. There is exponentially more that think that way that just won't say it out loud.
So we've touched on this. Is there has been I don't even know how many hundreds of thousands of people took it to social media using their public profile to say the most vile things, and not just say the most vile things, but celebrate and encourage more, which is obviously horrifying. Now, those are the people that I think most of us would agree are the idiots that are willing to do that. How many more are privately believing that? And
So
that's one
this.
of the scariest things.
Yeah, that's this.
Yeah.
The amount of people who are really thinking of it, and I've been in education for 20 years, ginormous.
That's
And
terrifying.
you know, being even just a neutral teacher is the minority, a huge minority. And for many years, we've been pressured and quieted, silenced, and just kind of made bad to feel if you don't embrace this particular ideology.
The left wing ideology has infiltrated our main points of society so badly. Like, come on, dude. Teachers, school, companies, big companies, it healthcare system, government. It has infiltrated our most important parts of life, dude. But as a Christian, it's not shocking to me because I believe this isn't going to get better. We may have moments where um we may have better moments throughout horrible times, but I think it's going to progressively get worse and worse and worse. And and the world's going to get more and more evil because that it has to happen. Even though we don't want it to happen, it has to happen in order for Jesus to come back.
And I don't necessarily embrace that ideology. I'm not on the liberal progressive side, and so it's kind of like sometimes you almost feel like you have to say, like, I don't want to say what I really think because I'm afraid I'm going to get fired. I'm afraid of this, and it's not because of violence. And so now you've got teachers who are like secretly celebrating violence. That's a whole different thing. It's a different thing to say I am pro-choice or I'm pro-life or I'm pro this or I'm pro that. That's a whole different thing. Believe what you want, right?
Yeah.
But when you are the person that is like, I want this person to die, what is wrong with our country, right? What is wrong with our media? That people literally,
Yeah.
I don't care what you think, nobody should die for it. And if somebody made you think that way, there's a problem.
Yep.
I think one of the most horrifying things too is how many people here resonate with what Charlie Kirk says, or any Ben Shapiro, or any of these conservative figures. How many people actually agree with them on almost everything, maybe even everything? Right? It's millions of Americans, and this is not some radical view. This is conservatism here, right? And so, how many people agree with that, and how many people are actually wishing death upon those
Yeah.
basic conservatives within it? I'm not going to pretend like Charlie Kirk was just some center right moderate whatever. No, he was a strong conservative. He really was. But he was
He was a strong conservative, yes, but he was also very moderate in the grand scheme of things. Um, and I mean, him and his wife even talked about this on their podcast episode when they were answering questions, and he straight up said, he's like, I'm moderate compared to her. So they literally took away the dude who is willing to extend an olive branch, which I mean, I still think Erica Kirk is going to be like that. But Charlie, by the grand scheme of things, if you take away how radically everything is shifted, he really isn't like this crazy, radically far right guy. He's a conservative, yes, but politically, he's not radical at all.
certainly not what they're saying he is. And what they're saying he is all these disgusting authoritarian kind of positions to justify and perhaps encourage more of that political violence, you know?
Yeah, I saw this one clip of him where it said, the clip or the meme said, there's no place for conservatives in the Republican movement. And then I looked at the actual clip, and he was saying, who are you to say there's no place for conservatives in the movement? And it was such a complete twisted sense of what he was saying.
Yep.
So those are things, and it's just so many people are now so blocked to.
And people are so used. Like, we live in such an evil world now that people are so used to just manipulating things and manipulating what people say for their own benefit. It is disgusting, bro. It is a terrifying, terrifying thing how many people are very comfortable with taking a clip of something and chopping it up and manipulating it to serve their purpose. It's scary how comfortable people are with doing that and not feeling any shame over it at all.
To be anywhere near willing to listen, to hear, to really investigate themselves, because someone told me this, so therefore I believe that. And so I think it's this whole thing has kind of hit me in terms of being a Christian first and foremost. Yeah. It's hit me a lot in terms of where I take away is being a teacher and being my heart is for the youth, right? Like I put 20 years of this or more, and he had this vision that people are like, oh, we should look at middle age, like people that are this demographic, the people who really influence politics, and they have low voter turnout, so let's not pay attention to them. That's long-term thinking, right? Charlie had long-term thinking. This is going to affect elections in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40
Yeah.
years, and we're going to change the heart of the nation by getting this group now. So.
Last comment I'll make super quick. I do think this is a conversation. This really highlights the importance of teaching critical thinking within the classroom, and I don't know if you've kind of come to that as well, or maybe you already do that. I'm sure you do, but I think a lot of this has to do with it's consume absolute garbage and propaganda, disinformation, not misinformation, disinformation, and just regurgitating it. No, we need to be teaching the American people how to do better.
Yeah, we need to start teaching the skill of how to take a quote, a clip, and I do this in my classroom, but take a quote, take a clip, look at the bigger context, right? Get the bigger speech, the transcript, the closed captioning, whatever you need to do. And I teach my kids to do that. I don't think I don't think teachers are doing that, let alone teaching it. I don't think they do it themselves. And so, and I'm not saying that for all. There's some really amazing, wonderful teachers out there. I'm not trying to disparage teachers at all. Absolutely. And I think that they genuinely have good hearts and they're genuinely coming from a really good place. Yeah. I just think that so many are bought into this that it's just,
yeah,
where do we even start? And it's not necessarily the focus on our PDs, our professional developments. It's not something that we're really looking at. And I think this tells us we need to start.
And people need to start being honest with themselves and not feeding into their own freaking bias to make themselves feel better.